Okay.
I have a question before. Can I ask that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to summarize from the phone because we said, I'll come back to it. I just want to clarify something. They become identified individually, and then they become bebchinas b'schas mehusim yichodim. Mehusim yichodim is a very strong term. A mehus is something, is a standalone entity. This is a mehus. Every human being is a mehus. He stands on his own 2 feet. Mehusim yichodim means just that the spheres become mehusim yichodim.
Mehus what? Mehus what? Mehus?
Mehus.
What's the second word?
Meyuchodim. 3 lines on the bottom. 4 lines on the bottom. Meyuchodim, distinct.
Okay.
This is what the keilim, describe the principle. Okay, well, let me see what you have.
No, it's not on this, but on the cuff. We learned before
Okay, yeah.
that it's a line, so there's the mala and mata.
Right.
We also learned that the cuff is a measure stick, and it forms the sphere should be bo'ifin kach v'kach taf. So there, I don't know if it's the cuff is a line, and what I mean it
That's what Rebbe explains now.
we're learning now in Keilim already, but this is before. This is in the cuff.
Look in the beginning of the line, 4 lines from the bottom. The sibes and yesi kaf dak. Of course, the kaf is a kaf dak. Go follow. It's not finished yet, okay? So we discussed the principle. Mehusim Yechodim made a big emphasis on that. Defining and explaining what is a keil. A keil is something which is formed, built from material in the world itself. Like you say, a cup of water. The water is the oil, but the keil is not made from the water. The keil is made from material in the world itself. This is how the water becomes present, and the real presence in the world. Mehusim Yechodim means realities, distinct realities. Since they're in Keilim, they're distinct realities in the worldly context, within the world in which they are. Because the Keilim, as I said, are formed from within, taking the entity of the form of the Keilim from the world itself. This is the real hislapshus. The oir, which is oir laki, is mislabish in the world in a manner that this entity in the world becomes a mahus, a real mahus. The oir becomes a mahus miyuchad, a distinct entity. You cannot put it in a keili of a different world, so to speak, of a different reality, of a different mahus, of a different source, resource, if it is still oir. Oil, it tends to rise upwards to its source.
So what just happened there? The or became mahus miyuchad, a special, specific.
A distinct mahus.
Yet it's still or it's left that get
It's still oil, but oil became. This is where the oil becomes a mahus miyuchad.
So already in the kav, you're saying there's already this.
The kav is allows. The kav is a whole line coming all the way from Prat and Tzimtzum. In Atzilus, the kav, in the oil from the kav is mislabish in the keil. That is, so it's the ultimate accomplishment of the kav. What?
I don't understand you.
In the kav itself, is there a derech kliya chesed, or
No,
that's
kav is
also-
oil. Kav is oil. But
and
this
there's
oil,
no keilim whatsoever in the
there's
kav?
no keil in it. The keil came from in the world of ships.
But after what you said, you cannot say kav is or, because you said there's an or Eloki and or Bikeli. So it's two.
Oil became that's after the kav is mislabish in the keil. After it's mislabish in the keil, then it becomes, then the oil is changed from being oil to being a mahus like the keil.
So it's
One second. Let's not talk this without a context. This is something which we have phenomenal experience with personally. If you have an idea that surfaces in your own mind, let's take it concretely. You come outside and you see a beautiful sky. Inevitably, this beauty of the sky is going to make an impression on you. This impression is not what the sky is in a keil and forces itself upon you. This is your own reaction to the sky. It is your oil, your neshama, that understands the sky in a certain way. And recognizes, oh, this is divine beauty. This is not a worldly thing. You can begin to describe it. You can begin to touch it. What is it? What is it made of? You don't even think in terms of what it's made of, because it is beyond. Its reality that expresses you is beyond knowing what it's made of. You don't want to touch it. You just want to look at it. And we said that sight is at the level of chokhmah. Sight is at the level of chokhmah, which means sight sees the thing as it is in its own reality, in its own truth, not how it translates to me. And I don't care. I want to see it the way it is in its own reality. Then you contemplate on it. Inevitably, it makes an impression, and you start thinking about it, to the point where you come with your friends and say, "Oh, this morning the sky was some phenomenon." At that point, when you say, at this moment, when you're talking to your friend, that experience has now formalized in a totally different level than when you first saw it. Then it became something that how you experienced it.
Part of the point is that it is still or, even though it's...
It is still oil, because you still remember, because it's the impression that you remember from seeing it. But now it became your thing, to the point where you want to talk to your friend about it. If you want to talk to your friend about it, without showing it to him, obviously you're carrying it with you. Yes.
So this is as if light became defined or captured even
as a mitzvah. That's what he's saying. It becomes a mitzvah, and not only the mitzvah, it becomes a mahus.
Isn't it strange to still call that light? Meaning, at the point you're describing it to your friend, you are recalling an experience. To what extent is that still original light?
This is the phenomenon of oil.
To remain on this call, press 1.
This is the phenomenon of oil became. Even, like I said, in our own experience. you observe something, or you think of something, you learn something, you have an insight, which comes from your chokhmah, and then you want to talk to somebody about it. It's reformed it to a totally different level. Now it is something which has the keil of words. You can put it into words. In machshava you don't have it in words. In machshava has oisis, but they're completely camouflaged. And then you can use that you're focused on the idea. And then when it comes into, when you're ready to, you want to say it. But the minute you want to say it, it already acquires a presence that can fit into keil.
Right, and at that point, when...
One second, let me put it in completely. When you first saw it, it existed in your sight. And I said, it's chokhmah. Chokhmah does not have its own presence. It is completely dedicated and united with that which is shown to it. The minute you start thinking in terms of putting into words, now it becomes a mitzias in your experience. You begin to think, how would I express this? Why you want to express it means it in your mitzias. Not, you cannot bring him to the sky or to show him the inyan. You can talk about it.
Right. How's talking about it still light?
Okay. Good. It's a very important question because we're struggling with this phenomenon. The whole world is struggling with it. Let's take it in its inception. Initially, God created, right in the beginning, God created the heaven, the Shemayim, and the Oretz. Now, Shemayim and Oretz are opposites. Oretz is the bottom, is a tangible mitzias. Shemayim is an intangible reality. Who can define what Shemayim is? But this is part of the bria of the world. What does this tell you? Shlomo, please listen.
Yeah.
It tells you that yes, it is of creation, but it's a divine creation. It's a creation that represents oir.
More than Earth does.
The whole creation represents oir.
Both Shemayim and Eretz are...
The Shemayim Oretz is one creation, it's one entity.
Okay.
Except the creation was such that you can take this the Shemayim and translate it on the earth. You can stand on earth and live you live and see the Shemayim. Not only you can see the Shemayim that it says in Ayim that the person as he walks, it's inevitably that he's going to see the Shemayim. He's going to see Shemayim and Eretz at the same time. Mm-hmm. This is how human beings were made. Because that's the reality of the world. Because the world is, as a physical creation, it's a divine creation. It's a divine spirit. It's an oir. Animals look down to the earth exclusively. This is what their reality is. Human being does not. He sees the earth as really a divine presentation to be able to function in a certain concrete manner. But basically, it is a divine thing.
You're talking about Shemayim now, right?
Shemayim and Oretz, the world as such. You take hide, cow hide, and you strip, make it suicide of them. You make parchment of them. You write a parsha, and you put it in the tunnel, and tie it to your hand. What are you doing? You're saying, "Oh, this is very holy." This means it's very holy. It's a piece of parchment.
It does seem like the answer is that it's a wondrous godly creation, that something of the nature of keil does also include light.
Keil is a receptacle for oil.
Right, and we...
One second. Here, this is a cup of water. Concretely, it's a keil. But you will not look at it if it couldn't hold water. Not only will not look, this is what it stands for. You keep it on your table. Not because of its physical structure, but because it is able to hold water. Which means this is a keil for oil. Now we discussed it many times. In order for oil to fit in the keil, the oil has to be formed, has to be translated on a much lower level. And this is true even when we talk about water. Water that flows in a river, water that flows from a spring, or water that is in the ocean and in the lakes, is not drinking water. It has to be tamed first. When you open your faucet and you want to fill on a cup of water, you open your faucet with a certain strength, otherwise it just jump out of the cup.
We started this discussion saying, how would it still be light when you're talking about it? How would it still be that it's from the original? By the mashal of the cup and the water, I mean, I get that. The cup is different. The water remains, still is drinking water, but it's still of the same material as the river it came from. But
it was formed from the water and made possible to stay in the cup.
Fine. But again, the idea that or becomes mitzius miyuchad, somehow it remains light, yet it becomes different from its original light. We use the example of talking about the sky. You go out, you see the sky, it's infinite, it's beyond expression, you're just in wonder. You come, you tell your friend, that's like a report of an experience. But we said that too is light.
No. It's not a report of an experience. You want your friend to appreciate what you have to tell him. You don't tell him, this is my experience.
You recreate.
You recreate it. But in order to recreate it, you have to limit the experience to something which is presentable.
Okay, and in this presentable format comes along the authentic light, but reformatted, sort of.
That's right, but it's still oil. If not for the oil, you wouldn't talk about it. It's not to talk about.
Okay.
But the caveat is the Moshe gave us more on Chochmah, and typically that's where the Matzilus is compared to Chochmah.
No.
But the caveat is higher than that.
No, that's what Rebbe says.
And
The Kav
that's
comes
why
down.
that's what's a little tricky to understand. The Keil, it sounds like there isn't Keilim in the Kav, and yet still there is some sort of Chayat in the Kav that is Makbul Da'ir.
Yes, that's what it says.
How, if there's no Keilim, what's the Chayat that's Makbul Da'ir? And there's no tzimtzum difference in tzumim in the Kav itself. It's one Kav.
There is. Initially the Kav starts from the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is what allows the spheres Ein Sof to come into a Kav. Therefore, they already possess the principle of a tzimtzum, of definition. But as it goes through the higher levels, definition is not yet fully recognized. All the way to the point, that's what Rebbe says, until it reaches when it becomes oil became. This is the bottom of the cup.
So the tzir the kav is not like a funnel. It's like a kav. It's a kav. It's a kav at a funnel. You don't get in the feeling that there's mayla mati you could relate to, but you don't get the feeling that there is any hagbala on the earth within the kav.
The Albola,
he's saying clearly that there is some sort of
the Albola in the oil, we're still in the Albola in the oil is that it becomes a kav dak. which means everything that's contained in the kav, just like in case of the water. The water in the lake is water in the lake. In order to fill a cup, you have to funnel it through a conduit that will be able to fill your cup. And this funneling, until the point where it reaches a cup, it's hunting, everything is emotional. I think this is the point that it reaches a cup, it is still part of the lake. The force of its movement is part of the lake.
See, the hard part for me in this is, if it would be one iron, so it would be very understandable. But it's still within the cup, there's 10 irons. So how you're funneling it in 10 different dimensions.
I know what you mean.
That's a sphere.
I mean, as a sphere is, that's what the Rebbe says, because in its inception, where the cup comes from, the cup is representing as a sphere is hagnuzos. In its inception, there is a sphere. We discussed this in your sphere hagnuzos. I don't know if you should.
We have time.
I remember what you said.
As a sphere hagnuzos, this is representing the rotzing from the Israel. But it's Golos.
I didn't have this cut also 100% there. The Esser spheres of Gnuz is already within the spheres believable in the earning stuff?
Yeah. Agnuzis means in the earning serve.
So how?
As a sphere hagnuzos is for the tzimtzum.
He's inducing that there's a hint of Esespheros Agnuzos inside the cup.
No. The kav, no. As a sphere hagnuzos is the source for the kav. The kav comes after the tzimtzum. As a sphere hagnuzos, this is really a phenomenal thing. As a sphere hagnuzos means that in Ein Sof, there is already an intent for creating one. It does not come after the means to creating surfaces.
Even before that sense. It's
Here's
there.
before the change.
And how could you say on earn stuff that there's Esser spheres? How could you say that that earn stuff has within it
Beautiful. That's what Rebbe says. True. Ein Sof Mitzadatzmi, there is no sin. But once there is Aliyah's Rotzon. In Ein Sof, there is the Rotzon, Livre, Regalis. Where it comes from, this is Mitzad Tevatim later, this is Mitzad the Rotzon Halaki. But in this Rotzon, which is not Chochmah, this is Rotzon, Regalis, already there is spheres that. Okay, Baruch, you want me to call me? I was young, but nobody was there, so the assistant started complaining. Okay, let me call back. Hello?
Followed by the pound key.
I'm a PALTIEL.
Thank you. You are now up to intimate number 2.
Not too much.
Okay. We had our own Moshe from our own experience. Clearly, we have to be some sensitivity to this, but nonetheless, we all can relate to this. You saw something exquisite. It's a beautiful sky. It's exquisite. You can't even begin to picture out, to describe it. And at that moment, you don't even think in terms of describing it. It's just the reality where it is, and it's going to be you don't even think in terms of translating it. Then you meet a friend, he says, "Oh, you know what I saw this morning?" At that moment, At that moment, that experience reformates itself. You begin to think in terms, oh yeah, it is transmittable. It's not the same, but that you experienced when you initially saw it. It's not the same at all. If you start thinking you can transmit it in its absence, so to speak, that's a completely different reality.
Is it possible to say it's a neshama experience, or not really?
It is a neshama experience. It's in seichel, chochma, bina das.
It's very stepped down. Though. It's very stepped down.
It is stepped down, but what motivates you to speak about it?
Yeah, no, something remains, but
Of course.
something's lost.
Of
Amount
course.
is lost.
And then you're going to be talking and talking and talking in circles. You feel. I want to really give you that sense.
Can that be done? It can never be done.
Well, it can be done to the extent. You know, ultimately, it's done and done and done until it says, but really I can't even express it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Going back to that series of needs and learn, so the Alois Haratzin is poil that the spheres should come to Gilui, Al Derech Gilui.
No, I say Alois Haratzin first creates, so to speak, as a spheres of music.
So that spheres of is from spheres Bligvul.
Yeah.
So here he sort of, so to speak, it defines as a spheres within the spheres Bligvul.
Yeah.
So and then and then.
1 second. Do you understand that? Spheres Bligvul, we run through this. Spheres Bligvul is what you say. Because this is alien safe. Spheres Bligvul means I'll give you, so to speak, a course, but it's an accurate way to look at it. You're in this room. Oh, thank you. Wow. Alois Haratzin. You're in this room. This room is one large open area. This large open area, can you think of it and see further that this large open area consists of multiple points in the open areas. You understand that, right? How many points are there? At this point, there's no limit, because it's describing a bigger reality, a higher reality. Not a means to express it, but the reality itself, the space itself, the number of points that it fills in. Because a point, for those who study a little bit physics, a point is by definition measureless. It doesn't take up any room. So how many points are there? It's infinite. Then there is what's called Aliyah Zerotz, or at our level, in terms of, I want to furnish this room. I want to make out this room a dining room, or a learning. I want to make a besmedrash. At least it is a room without any definition. Then there's infinite number of parts. Once I think of it, oh, this is a bismedrash. It has completed, it reforms itself automatically. How can it be? Oh, there's a wall here, there's a wall here, there's a place here. You look at it, you see a completely different entity. Then you have what's called Esesphiras Agnuzos. You're still in the same room, but this room is now presenting to you what's possible to make of it, to make of it. even after that you begin to think in those terms, then in order to make it, you have to go through a tzimtzum. You cannot furnish a room by looking at the whole room. You have to start looking at each wall independently. What is the entrance means of this room? How do you enter it? How do you leave the room? How are you going to reach that point? Yeah, but you begin to think in terms of feasibility, of usability. This is in how much it does as a sphere diagnosis, because they're contained within the reality of the room. But now you think of it in terms of how they can be utilized, not how they're part of the room. This as a sphere diagnosis. This is the Aliyah Rotzen. I want to make it a bisman. Then there is a tzimtzum. A tzimtzum is that which further defines how am I going to actually accomplish this. You start thinking in specific terms. There is an entrance, there's a wall, there's a window, there's a door, and everything is identified individually.
That's already Associated Gnuzos?
Huh?
That's Associated Gnuzos is before that.
What?
That's Associated Gnuzos?
That's after. That's after the tzimtzum. You're mitzamtzim. Now you're not looking in terms of its total capacity. Looking in terms of okay, how do you fulfill, so to speak, your wish, Aliyah Zorotz? In order to fulfill the wish, you have to limit your view in a very concrete manner, until the point. But the concrete manner goes through from the all the way through all the oilmas and so forth. Excuse me, until we reach Atzilus. Atzilus is called a world because in Atzilus the oiles are mislavish and keil. What does keil mean? Keil means I have defined this space, by putting a table in there. It's the same space. But now I'm defining this space from a different level completely, as part of Mitzias of the world, not as part of Mitzias of this room, rather than as part of space in general.
I'm confused. Esospheres and Gnuzos are before the Tzimtzum, before the Kav, or after the Kav?
No, before the Tzimtzum. Esospheres and Gnuzos are in the Ein Sof.
One that could have, because the mashal that you're giving here is similar to the mashal of Chachma. So the Alois Ratzon and the Tzimtzum is the same Tzimtzum as the Havara of Seichel and Chachma.
I'm going to see it in Soil Nusai. We learn. What's that? I'm sorry.
No, because in Tzimtzum, whenever there is Hashvas Sichlis or Hashvas Chachma, this is the process what you're describing. And Tzimtzum, for some reason, gives a feeling like this big Tzimtzum more than just irregular.
There's a difference. The difference is the Tzimtzum Harishin. Tzimtzum Harishin created. The Tzimtzum Chochma reveals. Bina also comes from Chochma with the Tzimtzum. But the union of Bina is to reveal what's contained in the Chochma. Where the Tzimtzum Harishin actually creates. Because before that it's Ein Sof. Ultimately it's like Yesh V'Yayin. Okay, so now we have a graduating document. We can now go and create oils.
So now we're saying there's a Tzimtzum Harishon, and then there's further down there's other Tzimtzumim that are not of the same
Not the same caliber, right?
Okay.
But then, so then how could the same mashal apply?
You applied it to the same mashal, but I don't think.
This is the principle of a moshel that we've spoken about many times. A moshel is not to translate, to transfer one thing to another thing. A moshel is to present an idea. How do you present an idea? You present the idea using the experience that a person already has. But you're using it only. Open your mind. I don't mean this. I mean the way it is in a different arena, in different reality. But then I cannot talk to you about it because you have not experienced it, not related to it. So translate it from this and understand it. Chochmah is a moshel for